Good evening. How you doing? Thank you for joining me tonight. I'm Scott Sackett. I hope that you enjoy this and you will leave a comment or subscribe below. Tonight, I'm going to talk about John Byrne's X-Men Elsewhen. Now, you may be unfamiliar with this, but several years ago, I want to say it was either 2018 or 2019, comic book artist legend John Byrne, who hadn't done mainstream comics in several years. He had done a lot of commissions, kind of stopped drawing a little bit, and then he'd draw, and then he'd stop drawing. But he was pretty regular at drawing something. He put a picture, which was basically this picture, on his website, which is byrnerobotics.com, and he said, and I think he said he got the itch to see if he could draw the way that he did when he drew the X-Men back in the day. So I'm going to grab something up here to show this. So this is John Byrne's X-Men Artifact Edition. This is from John Byrne's art in the 80s. I'm not going to talk about a lot except to say he wanted to see if he could draw like this. And spoiler alert, I think he drew better than that here. And I may do a video comparing them, but I really don't want to do that tonight. Tonight what I want to do is just kind of share this for anybody that heard about it. Of course, Rob Liefeld did a podcast about it recently. And so probably everybody has heard about this by now. But John Byrne, he drew this image, and then before he knew it, he had drawn I think it was 32 or 48 page first issue. And what he did then is he drew the X-Men as if he were still on the X-Men. In other words, John Byrne is well known for being part of the Dark Phoenix saga, which was where Jean Grey died. And so, but there's some debate because that wasn't the first plan for Jean Grey. Jean Grey was actually going to kind of get a kind of a psychic surgery to remove the Phoenix from her. And so John Byrne apparently was never real happy with how it came out. And so this became his X-Men if that had happened. In other words, if you read the Epic has the I think it's a What If that has the original story where Phoenix was basically went through this surgery. And so this X-Men kind of takes off on that. Now, you can't buy this. This has never been released. This is my copy that I printed out and had spiral bound. And I did that on purpose because I love the art and I wanted to study the art so I can look at the art. It's thick. It's 30. Oh gosh, how many issues is it? I should have done this ahead of time. It is 32 issues. And what happened is John Byrne did it, and he released a page a day, and it was during the pandemic. It was after the pandemic. It went on 32 pages, went on 2.5 years, something like that. 32 pages on anything, on any comic run is a tremendous run. And he was doing this basically for himself. He was retired. He probably doesn't need the money, I would guess. And you say money, he wasn't working for Marvel. Well, what he did, and I think this is genius, he drew it, and then the original pages were for sale. You can sell original art. I could draw whatever all day long and sell original art. Now, do you make a print? Then you're skirting the law. Or are you making a book of it? Then you're in trouble. You're violating copyright. But original art you can sell. So John Byrne was selling his pages, and my understanding is they went for between $3,000 and $5,000. Also, John Byrne said some of these pages took him an hour to do. Wrap your brain around that. It took him an hour to do these, and he was releasing one a day. I think he worked ahead a little bit, but I think he's just a guy that works hard. Now, how come only 32 issues? Well, let me talk about why this isn't published. And I'm not going to there's some speculation because Marvel says one thing and John Byrne says one thing. Another thing, I will put out John Byrne's story because I've heard him tell his story on his webpage byrnerobotics.com. If you're not a member, you should go there and join if you're a John Byrne fan. It's weird because you got to put your email in, and you got to have certain Gmail won't work, certain kinds of email won't work. I've had one for years, thankfully, because I don't think my current email would work. But anyway, so there's a picture that floated around from Boston Comic Con of John Byrne shaking editor-in-chief C.B. Cebulski's hand. I know C.B. Cebulski, known him for years. CB is a big John Byrne fan, and he talked about when he was a kid growing up in Connecticut, seeing John Byrne driving around in Connecticut. But anyway, so Marvel, they kind of had a deal, or they had a handshake deal, and I think CB actually went out to Byrne. They met the con. I think CB went to Byrne's house and looked at the pages. And he was going to make him a deal, or they talked about doing a deal. And John Byrne has said that he got tired of waiting on him. And I could completely believe that. And I don't know, Rob's thing, he talked about the Marvel thing. I haven't heard anything on Marvel's deal, so I'm not going to repeat any of that. I'm just going to go with what John Byrne has said, that he got tired of waiting on him. I believe it. He doesn't need to deal with him. So in the meantime, he was drawing an X-Men comic, which is a lot of artists' dreams. I'd love to draw an X-Men comic. Draw an X-Men comic without any editorial interference, without writer interference, without any he's in the past he's complained about inkers, he's complained about writers, I don't think he's complained about colorists, complained about editors. He didn't have to deal with any of that. He drew the pages, he lettered them himself, and he put them on the web for anybody to see. And they're still up there if you want to go see them. The site crashed not long ago, but it's back up. I think Rob Liefeld may have crashed it. But anyway, again, Byrne, Byrne, robotics.com. Okay, so like I said, I printed them out. I got them spiral bound because I wanted a print copy of them. And so I put a little divider in. So I want to talk about a couple things. First off, why do I think this is so cool? Or let me. Why did I want a copy of this to study? Let's go right there. And one thing that John Byrne understands is that a comic book has to be engaging. There is something going on in every page. For example, and I think you can see both pages. On this page, Kitty Pryde is tripped by Wolverine and she falls through the Blackbird. Then she goes down there and she's falling. Nightcrawler tries to catch her. He can't follow her. There's Kitty. She freaks out. So basically she freaks out and becomes intangible and he can't hold her. But there's something going on here. Colossus is mad at Wolverine for tripping Kitty. Nightcrawler saying she's gone. They're looking for her. What's going on? They're splitting up. Here they see Carl Lycos, who is the Sauron. Testing my X-Men knowledge. But he's a master of making something. If you're making comics, something has to be happening on every page, and like, look, Colossus is getting shot. Colossus is tearing up the thing. Lycos is stalking Wolverine, or Wolverine stalking Lycos, I guess. Here he turns into Sauron. He grabs him. He hypnotizes Storm. Storm sees Wolverine's. There's just something going on in every page. And it's amazing how many people don't understand that something has to happen on every page. This is basic comic storytelling. This isn't even getting into what's great about the art. So let's talk about first off, let me say, I think this is John Byrne's best work. John Byrne has been someone who's been in the industry for years. People have said, oh, my favorite work is his X-Men work, the original X-Men work they did back in the 80s. And I love that stuff. But this work, I consider this the work of someone that has mastered anatomy, mastered storytelling, mastered rendering. I mean, look at some of the rendering here. John Byrne did not do this kind of stuff when he was working on X-Men. Now, he had an inker, and his pencils are kind of hard to find, but he did not do this. The other thing that he does so well in this that he didn't do back in the day. Not trying to hate on that stuff, but camera angles. Every camera angle. You know, they talk about storytelling in comics, and one of the things that you got to do is you got to vary the camera angles. This is it'd be probably a long down shot. Here's kind of a long medium shot. It's showing, you know, and it's kind of at a little bit of a Dutch angle, so it adds even more interest to it. Here's kind of a side shot because he wants to show them all running. He's got a little amount of space there. And then here, and this is something he does well in here that he didn't do as good back in the 80s. Of course he got better. He pushes the depth of field. The Cyclops is here. Nightcrawler's way down here. That depth of field. If you've ever watched Citizen Kane, Orson Welles is a master of that. He would show something happening in the foreground of a shot, and then way in the background there'd be something going on. And that's what John Byrne is doing in this. He's real good at like stretching that out. So it looks so it gives it more depth and it gives it more interest. And again, with the rendering, he draws with a well, it's not one, it's like this, because he showed it. This is a Stadler Mars pencil or lead holder. And he's talked about using HB lead. He draws, and his thing is, what he said is, if you draw with like a soft lead, it allows kind of like happy accidents, like kind of stray marks that look good. And a lot of this he draws like this with the pencil on. You can see it right there, you know, and you can see it in here. A lot of that was drawn. That's how he gets those wide strokes on the pencil lines there. So that's the end of the first one. So here we go into the second issue, and I'm not going to go through all these, but I just wanted to talk about it. And here we see, and this is another thing that I would say where John Byrne is a lot better than he used to be, or where let me not compare him. I don't want to compare him to the old John Byrne because that's not fair to current or past John Byrne. This is where John Byrne has mastered comic art. Look at these faces. Every one of these people looks terrified. None of them look alike. And I know people will complain, oh, John Byrne has like a stock face or whatever. I don't know. I disagree. This guy's kind of heavy set. This guy's got kind of a skinny, angular face. They're all yelling. This guy's pushing. Again, he's pushing that hand kind of into the foreground. That hand is, you can see it's forward. You know, that's something that a lot of new artists are challenged. A lot of older artists are challenged to do that. Certainly. Again, we see this Sentinel is smashing the building, and he's kind of clipping the corner of it, and there's rubble coming down, and he's looking at it. It draws your eye right through this. There's so much going on in that page. Every one of these pages is just a joy to look at. Let's see. I think I skipped a couple pages. Oh, there's double page spread. Doesn't work so good on the coil binding, but that's okay. So he did a double page spread. There's the Sentinel picking up cars, crushing cars, you know, and then down here we see Kitty and Storm are in the shopping, not shopping mall, but a store, a boutique, and they're just shopping. And then again, you see here's a long shot. You can see the full figure, and then here's is a medium shot where you can see like a waist up. It's like, hey, what's going on? And then we see Kitty going, it's some kind of giant robot, and then it throws a car. It's the same car too, by the way. It throws that Mercedes through the window, and she's like a Sentinel. And then, you know, Kitty again turns him intangible, or she phases, as they call it. And then Storm confronts the Sentinel. But I mean, just a great little drawing of a house with a car in front, and in an interesting bit of continuity, Nightcrawler and Wolverine talk about going to Canada. Nightcrawler's going, oh, Canada was pleasant, monsters aside. Well, in the regular X-Men continuity, which John Byrne drew back in the day, they went to Canada and they fought Wendigo with Alpha Flight, and Nightcrawler. Wolverine kind of resolved his issues with Alpha Flight. So So you see here, they get into a scuffle, and again, it's all action. And here comes Colossus, breaks it up, and they're kind of talking for a second. All of a sudden, hey, there's an alarm. There's a sentinel alarm. Every page has something happening. It's not a page after page after page of them talking. There's action. Even if it's just running, something is going on to make you want to turn the page, you know. Again, just all action. Now, another thing I want to talk about is John Byrne talked about one of his big influences is Neil Adams. And I think I see a lot of Neil Adams coming out of here in these pages. Now, one thing that he did, and John Byrne has done this a little bit, but a lot of off-canter panels, not the 3-panel, which I'm guilty of myself in my comics, putting in the 3 panels. But he breaks it up, and it's not forced. It's very how he does it is like masterful. That's all I can call it. It's so good how he uses, even when he uses a grid, he's varying the size. This one's got a bleed. It's so cool. I like I said, I love this stuff, and this is why I wanted a copy that I could look at and study. There's so much good stuff in here. If you don't have this, go to burnrobotics.com. Look at his face. That is like a Neil Adams looking face to me. I'm not the biggest Neil Adams fan, but man, he's channeling a lot of Neil Adams there, I believe. So this is I think it's the 3rd story. Now some of the pages are dark. I need to go in Photoshop and lighten them up, adjust the contrast. But man, when you got 32 comics worth of stuff, that's a lot of pages to go in and fix. And some of them are really good. I love this page. I love this panel right here. This is a 1-point perspective at the Salem Center train station, and it's just, there's the train coming. It's perfect. And what's funny is when I was in school, this is how they taught us perspective. Now, I knew perspective before they taught us in school because I had a cousin that showed me how perspective worked. But this is the exercise they have all the little kids do: draw a line, draw a horizon line, draw a road, draw stuff going to the thing. But this is so cool. But he doesn't skimp out. He draws the train station, which is very detailed. Unfortunately, these pages aren't the highest resolution. But then back here, you can see there's other buildings like across the street. He drew the ramp going down, or the handrail for the stairs going down, because there'd be stairs going down on the other side. Again, they greet him. They get in the van. The Professor Xavier has this van. I don't know if I've ever seen him ride in a van, but it makes sense. If someone can't walk and they're in a wheelchair, they ride in a van. And again, the varied camera angles. Kitty is in the front passenger seat, and she's talking to them in the back seat. And it's just a great kind of a down shot. They're driving, and it's funny. They're driving past the Sentinel destruction from the last issue, and they're like, "Hey, what's with the Sentinel stuff? What's going on here?" It's like, "Oh, I think they had a gas main explosion," which is what they used to cover up that story, or cover up the Sentinel attack. So here we have Nightcrawler. He's using his image inducer that he used in the new X-Men for a while, or in the Uncanny X-Men for a while. At one point he abandoned it, but he did use it for a while during John Byrne's run. And so it's funny, he's climbing up there, and he's got roses holding with his tail, and so they're floating because the image inducer doesn't give him a tail. And he's going up, the grabs, and so here's Spider-Man. So John Byrne draws in almost the entire Marvel universe in this. There's all kinds of stuff that's involved in this as it goes. He's playing in his sandbox, and he can do anything he can, because he has no editorial. He can do this. And there have been some criticism about the story kind of wandering, and that may be true, but man, this art is great. It is so good. Here's Spider-Man's here. He figures out Nightcrawler. So he swings off, but look at this. Look how that swing and the Nightcrawler hanging on the wall. It's that kind of an angle. Just awesome. And there's the roses in his tail. He goes in. There's an explosion. Okay. let's see. Let me skip forward a little bit. Oh, at one point, this is a great. This chapter is called "Wide Awake." This is Moria. Look at this. Look, the so Byrne penciled this, filled all this in, and then he went in with an electric eraser, I believe. I don't think he said, but electric eraser, and erased all these storm lines. And then he went over it with, I don't know if he did white on top of it or he did it using an eraser. He may have used an eraser on a ruler, but I don't think he did white. I think he did I think these are all pencil. And he did, so the rain, and then you get this. I mean, this is a beautiful. There's several pages like this that are like the splash page for the image, for the issue. That's just kind of an image of whatever, like a landscape, I guess, for lack of a better word. So here's Sentinels attack Moria Island, or I don't know, whatever it's called where Moria lives, the island. And so here the X-Men are in the Southwest looking for. Cerebos saw a new mutant in the Southwest, so they're there dealing with that, half the team. And so here we see they're at Jean's house. Now Jean is, because this procedure has been reduced to like a 12-year-old. Now it's a bright child, but a childlike state, and so she still has feelings for Scott, but she's like a child, and so her parents are worried about her. So they're visiting her, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so glad that you came to see me, Scotty." But okay, this is probably my favorite issue, the early part. This call his name Magneto. So basically, the rest of the team is going to whatever the island is where Moria McTaggart has her lab, and so they're taking the Stratojet, and so again we get another cool shot of the jet headed towards the island with that. I don't know what that round thing is. Maybe a Cerebro, maybe a radar dome. I don't know. So they're there. They're looking out. They see, oh, the residence. There's a big hole. Could it be Sentinels? They have Sentinels on the brain, so it's landing. One thing about John Byrne is he draws perspective grids for everything. You can kind of see it here. Everything has a grid that's got any kind of background. And most of these, as you can see, there's very few panels without any kind of background on them. So they're there, and all of a sudden something blasts them, and it says, "Too easy, X-Men. Charles Xavier would be ashamed of you." Then we skip back. And this is the kid that they picked up in Arizona or New Mexico, and they're trying to kind of get him acclimated. Xavier's talking to the Avengers. He hears a commotion. He goes down. There's all this stuff flying around. It reminds me of something out of The Exorcist or something. But we see there's Magneto. So there's a full-on battle between the X-Men and Magneto. And he flies off, but he'll be back. So again, skipping around, it has that fast pace of the old comics, but it's got the rendering, the great figures, the great emotion of John Byrne's later stuff. These cool panels where how cool is that? So here they kind of get the upper hand on Magneto. Oh, let me go back. Let's see if I can find. There's a page that I love. If I could afford these pages, or if I could buy these pages, I like this page. It's on the mainland in Scotland, and Multiple Man. I can't think of his name. Multiple Man is in town, and he's buying like supplies. Oh, Jamie, what's his last name? I can't think of it. Anyway, but it's just this shoreline here with these buildings and these boats, and it's just this tugboat just putting off into the distance. You see the little bitty island which is McTaggart's island lab. So they get the drop on Magneto, and just Cyclops is just pounding him, pounding him, pounding him, and Logan got some pretty good licks on him, but Magneto is pretty tough physically, and so he's pounding on him, and Magneto is about to figure out what he needs to do. He's trying to escape, so he released all this burst of magnetism. Then he's flying off. Well, Multiple Man creates all his multiples and like swarms him. Oh, Jamie Madrox. And he goes, now Cyclops going, I can't get a clear shot. And so Magneto escapes because Cyclops was beating the tar out of him, and Multiple Man got in the way. Anyway, and then this is a good one too. This is where Magneto goes up to his asteroid, which is very cool. He runs across a satellite on the way, or some kind of Skylab. And then here the Sentinels are attacking the Avengers. Just a bunch of cool stuff. And you can see as he goes along, the art gets better, and the storyline gets more. You know, he's got the Avengers. He gets the Fantastic Four in it. You know, and John Byrne's art, I've thought a lot about what appeals to me about it, and I love how he builds his figures. They're very solid. And he also is real good at his line work. You know, you look at this line work, and I know I'm looking at a reduced copy and at a poor resolution, but his line work is just so solid. And I think it feels like, I'm speculating, but it feels like he is drawing this stuff. I mean, and you can see an underdrawing. He roughed in the figure here. You can see it on this one for sure. But he's going over that. And I don't know if he erases or just draws real light or what, but the way he builds his figure and the line work he used, to me, is just so cool. I love it so much. And then when you throw in the expressions, you throw in the variety of camera shots, and you throw in the textures and the rendering that he does. I mean, just all kind. There's Magneto's blood. They're following him through his asteroid, trying to find him. They see that's from Magneto or Wolverine getting a hold of him, and here he basically disassembles his space station with the X-Men on it. You know. Anyway, just great stuff. I love all this stuff. I could sit here and look at this all night, but I probably need to end the video. But I would encourage you, again, if you have not seen this, to go to byrnerobotics.com. Let's see. Let me find it. He's got it. He put it on every page, which is, I don't blame him. I mean, this stuff is free. You know, all it cost me when I made this book was the cost of printing it, which was basically free, and then getting it bound. I mean, it's a thick book. There's a lot of 32 issues of pages, and the first one's double sized, I think. So, you know, it's a cool thing. If you're an artist, I would encourage you to look at this. It's rare that you get to see the pencils of an art. You can see a lot now with the internet and stuff. People are posting more of that stuff, and inkers a lot of times will ink over copies. They don't ink over the original pencils, so it's a lot easier to see the pencils than it used to be. But John Byrne, now he's put a lot of pencils on his Byrne Robotics, but there's very few X-Men pencils floating around. Not from his early run. From his Hidden Years run, they're out there, pretty accessible. But this stuff is so much better than that stuff. I mean, it's just, I mean, this is great. I wish I could do this. I do. Really cool. Just the way he just so casually looking, just kind of renders the bottom of Magneto's hand there, you know, and his face, and that shadow on that side. Really cool. Anyway, okay, I'm gonna stop there, and but thank you for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If let me know in the comments what you thought about this, if you've seen it or if you haven't seen it. I'll put a link in the comments for where you can find this. But you know, if you don't like it, let me know. I'd be curious what other people thought. But anyway, thank you for joining me. And like I said, if you enjoy this, please take a second to comment, leave a review. Well, don't leave a review, comment or subscribe. Anyway, thank you very much. Good night.